Okay, so this week we are going to work on procedural generation of a sort. We're not building our level from scratch using only code. That is quite complex and beyond what we are going to get into today. So let me explain with some drawing what I want the end goal to look like. So we have this map right here. It probably goes off like that a little bit, like that. And I'm going to create positions on my map, spawn points for houses, these houses here. And at each one of these houses, well, when the level is generated, we are going to roll some dice or generate a random number, and there's going to be a percentage chance, maybe a 75% chance, to put a house on each one of these spots. And if a house is generated, we will drag one of these prefabs and just plop it right down here. And if a house is not generated, we will build some rubble, which is just a house that has fallen down or fallen into disrepair. And that'll not do anything else except for be a landmark. And if a house is generated, we will spawn some enemies, some enemy AI, to patrol around the house. And those enemies will have randomly generated stats. A random number of them will be generated. And so we're just doing a lot of random generation within ranges. Say that this house right here spawns in between 2 and 5 enemies. Each one of them does, so this particular one spawns in 2 enemies. And another house over here spawns in 4 enemies. And they're all patrolling around this house. And that's how we create our levels. Is each house has a spawn point for enemies, and the enemies spawn in, and then they find their patrol points and start patrolling. This is what we are going to build. I am using a simple plane. You will be using the outdoor level that you have been working on. So let's get started. So we are going to start with the scripting as simply as possible. Where did my mouse go? Control Shift 2. Here it is. Okay. And we are going to build our empty game object, and this will be level spawn. We'll add a component here that says, it's called what? Spawn houses. Hope you guys are having a good day. It's very cold today. Okay. So let's spawn a random number at start just to practice. Debug.log. Without autocomplete, this is going to suck. Our random number is, and we're going to be using random.value just because it's very simple. It doesn't require a range. It gives us a number between 0 and 1. And this works great for percentages. If we get a 0.23, well, that's 23%. So let's save this. And let's look at our console. And let's hit play. So, I get our random number is 0.8059168. It's really precise, but 80%, right? That's our random number. And so we could build our if statement here. Let's go ahead and build our random value. Float value is equal to random dot value. And we'll just change this to value, and we will say if value is greater than 0.75. Actually, okay, so look at this right here. If value is greater than 0.75, how often is that going to occur as a percentage? That's actually only going to occur 25% of the time. Because in a random set of numbers, 75% of the numbers are below 75 and 25% of the numbers are above 25. So we can say if it's less than 25, or we could say if it's greater than 0.25. There's a couple of different ways we can write it. Whichever way seems to make more sense is what we should do. So let's go with the less than sign. And let's say less than 75. So we'll add a little comment here. True 75% of the time. And we'll just say debug.log. There's my autocomplete, hallelujah. We'll just say true. And then we'll have our else. And we'll say false. Or maybe we'll say something like build a house. And otherwise build a ruin. A ruined house. So let's hit play and see what this does for us. You can do it. I believe in you, Unity. Hit play. Yes. Okay, so this one says build a ruined house because our random number is 0.91, which is higher than 0.75. So let's check it again. And this one, our number is 0.27. And so it says build a house. So we'll fix this typo here. And this is kind of our logic for the day. Build a house or build a ruined house. Just get a random value and then check it. So let's create an array or a list of game objects. And we'll call this houses with a lowercase h. And we will build another list, this time ruins. And we need to build another list above this for spawn points. And we're going to essentially say for each spawn point in the level, if there's 2, we do 2 twice. If we do this 10 times, we do it 10 times. We're going to roll the dice. And if it's true, we build a house. And if it's false, we build some ruins. Okay? So let's go ahead and populate that. I'm going to go to 3D Object Sphere. I'm going to name this spawn point, and I'm going to remove the sphere collider for now. So this is my spawn point. I want it set to 0, 0, 0 because the pivot point for my house is also going to be 0, 0, 0. So I'm going to take this spawn point, and I'm just going to put in a few of them. Let's say 5 for now. Actually, let's say 3 for now. And we'll throw the player somewhere where there's not a house going to be appearing right in front of it. Okay. So on my level spawner, assuming that I make all of these public, I will be able to see these three lists and add stuff to them. So on spawn points, I'm going to change the size to 3. Actually, I wonder what would happen if this was 0 and I just dragged all 3 of these. Can I lock you? 1, 2, 3. I'm going to duplicate. Okay. Can I drag you onto spawn points? I can. That's cool. So you have to use the lock key to make that work. Otherwise, when you select something else, it'll go to that thing. But you can lock the inspector to only look at one thing, and that can come in really handy. So my houses are not currently set to be prefabs. I'm going to go to my prefab folder and just start dragging them in one by one. My houses and my rubble. And then I can remove them from the level, but I can also just leave them there for now. But let's go to level spawner. I am going to lock it again. And I'm going to drag my 2 houses to houses. And I'm going to drag my 2 rubble prefabs to ruins. So you get something like this. Now I'm going quick for the tutorial. You're going to need to build more houses and more spawn points and more rubble as well. But they'll just be duplicates of this. So with that complete, let's go to our code. And all of this really needs to happen in start. But we can... we can go ahead and say void build house and build that functionality in here. So I'm actually going to build 2 new functions, void build house and void build rubble. And then in start, we are going to say for each point in, sorry, this needs to be a game object, point in spawn points. So this is creating a new variable named point. It's of the type game object, and it's going to look in spawn points, which is this list right here. We're going to create a value. What, are we not allowed to rename this? Okay, so float random. That works for everybody, I hope. If random is less than 0.75f, build house, and then else build rubble. I'm mixing up ruin and rubble, and I'm sorry about that. And just to be clear, we're going to say debug.log. Our random number is random. So we should see this for each loop run 3 times for each spawn point. I have 3 spawn points, so 1, 2, 3 times. I can leave this code open while I get Unity running, or you can always pause the video and work it that way. I keep forgetting. So let's go to the console and let's hit play, and we should see Our random number is 0.3, 0.73, and 0.25. So in this case, we would have built a house 3 times. So let's go ahead and add that little debug value. And then we'll just talk about placement. Oh, you know what? We need to be sending this point location, because the house needs to know where to put this new house. So we're going to build transform point or location, and then we're going to send it point.transform. And it's as simple as that. A transform is the transform component in Unity, which keeps track of our position, rotation, and scale. And we are sending this point in spawn points to location. And then we could say something like instantiate houses of 0 at location.position and location.rotation. And we'll do the same thing for build rubble, except we will be using ruins instead. And this syntax right here, houses of 0, ruins of 0, that's just the first item in the list. So in my house of ruins, I have element 0 is rubble 1. So for each random number being less than 75, we're going to build the same first house, this one here. And for each one that is greater than 0.75, we're going to build this ruins here. Let's try it out. Ta-da! So if we look at our console first, build a house, that's unrelated. Our random number is 0.47, building a house. Our random number is 0.82, building a ruined house. Our random number is 0.13, and then it did not say building a house, but you know. It nevertheless did build 2 houses, 1, 2, and some ruins, 3. So let's turn play mode off and play it again. And we get 3 houses. And we get some rubble back there this time, and 2 houses up here. And if I were to build twice as many spawn points, let's go ahead and rotate around the center. Sure, you know what? Just like that is fine. And if I were to add all 6 of these to my level spawner, actually, let's set you back to 0. And then bring these over. Then this would run 6 times, and I would get 6 houses. And they'd actually be rotated in different ways, because they're following the rotation of the spawn point. So now that I have 6, so if you decide you want to rotate the spawn point to face a certain direction that isn't always, you know, perfectly north, east, south, or west, please do that. Look, I got 3 sets of ruins and 3 sets of houses. Oh, I know what happened. I have collapse on. That's why I didn't see building a ruined house the last time. And if I run it again, different things again. I think this is super cool. Hopefully y'all have a smile on your face eventually when you see this working, and it's working for you well. So maybe instead of building houses of 0, we can choose houses of 1 sometime. So let's pick a random range here. Between 0 and whatever the size of the list is. So houses.count. So if there's 2, between 0 and 2. The thing we have to ask is, are we including 2? Sometimes when we're building a random number and we say a number between 0 and 2, well, those options are going to be 0, 1, or 2. But if I only have 2 options in my list, 0 and 1, then saying 2 is going to cause an error because there is no third item. So we need to know whether or not the 2 is inclusive or exclusive. When you're dealing with integers and you say a number between 0 and 2, between might mean not including 2. And so 1 might be the only number you get, or you usually, I think, include the 0, and you get a number between 0 and 1, which corresponds to our first house and our second house. So, how do we find out? The scripting API, of course. Not for vector 3 necessarily, but for random.range. Aha, here's those numbers. Return a random float number between min, inclusive, and max, inclusive, if we give it 2 floats. So if I say between 0.0f and 1.0f, it can return 1 as a 0. If we scroll down to integers, the minimum is inclusive and the maximum is exclusive. So a number between 0 and 10 returns 0 to 9, which is perfect because we want to ignore the 2. If we are going to say number between 0 and houses.count, which is 2, we don't want that number 2 because it would give us an error. So I'm going to say the same thing for ruins. And we can move on with our day. So let's hit play and see what happens. I built this before. I know what's going to happen. Look at these fancy houses. Sometimes it's rubble. Sometimes it's the second house. Sometimes it's the first house. And it should be different every time that we play. There's the ruins of the second house right there. So if we were to create more prefabs, maybe I could just change them a few different colors. Hopefully you can just trust me to know that the more houses you add, the more randomization you will get. And it will just automatically increase, because if houses.count is 4 or 20, then this will give us a number between 0 and 19. So let's talk about spawning enemies in. And this one gets a little bit tricky because of the nav mesh. So I'm going to remove my 3 spawn points and change this number back down to 3. And let's go to the navigation tab and just hit bake. Come on, you can do it. Where's my nav mesh? Oh, it's probably not static. Okay. Static. Bake. And I made the wrong thing static because it was locked. So let's static this. Now navigation, now bake, and there's the blue points that I expected to see. Now when I put a house on this, my navigation is not going to rebake. I need to tell my walls to be navigation cutters. So what I can do is I can create this 3D object cube. I can move it right here. Let's say that I make it long like this and a little bit above just so we can watch the navigation. So if I bake this again, this object is not going to cut out the way that it would if it were set to static and I were to bake it. This is what I want to see, right? But I can't make my houses static because they don't exist at the start. So what I need to do is I need to go to my wall and I need to look at navigation and nav mesh obstacle. And we're going to click this carve button. And we'll say carve only stationary. And let's see what that does to our nav mesh. You can see it carves. And as I move, it carves out. So if it didn't exist, and then suddenly did exist, it would carve out correctly. So we're just going to add this component to all of the walls of our houses. So I'll go to my house 1. And I will pick the 4 walls. I don't want to pick the floor because I want my AI to spawn inside of the floor. So we'll go here. We'll go to nav mesh obstacle. And we'll click on carve. And carve only stationary is a good idea because our walls are not actually going to move. And let's save that. Let's do that to our next house. And let's add component, nav mesh obstacle, and carve. Maybe we can just copy this component. We cannot. Okay, well, how about on a single one? There it is. And let's look at our rubble. So this roof has fallen over, and I don't want my AI to run around it, so I'm going to add that as well. And I can just right-click, paste component as new, and it includes the carve functionality already. So let's save that. Let's go to rubble 2. And paste component as new, and hit save. So we'll go back to our scene. We don't need this example anymore. I'm going to save this. I'm going to look at my nav mesh map. And I'm going to hit play and see if my level gets carved out. And so it does. You can see that there is a path through this. If we were to make this invisible for a moment, you could see that they can walk around this, but not into it. If you haven't noticed, this is a new feature of Unity to turn off or to lock, so you can't actually mess with it. You can actually do this to several at a time. They're still there, they just can't be seen. It's a nice feature. So let's have a look at an actual house. Let's make sure we can carve into this one as well. We will turn that off. And we can see the nav mesh inside is still intact, but there is only one way outside of this room. Yeah, cool. Okay. So on to the AI buddies. What's Agent Mel got right here? What's your deal? Humanoid, nav mesh agent, patrol script, player. Okay, so a couple of other things. Our AI is not going to know what our player is, and our AI, when spawned in, is not going to know where its patrol points are. So let's modify our house for a minute. We need to build a few more things inside. Please note that on my house, the pivot is at 0 on the y-axis, so it can build itself in the correct location. I might as well zero out where it exists in the prefab as well, just in case that ever makes a difference. So I'm going to throw a capsule inside, just so I know where the AI is going to spawn in, and I want it to spawn in the center. And my floor is set to 0.1, which is why when I set it to match the the floor, it's actually got a Y value of 1.1. So this is where I want it to spawn in. Obviously, I don't want to see this anymore, so I'm just going to turn the mesh renderer and the capsule collider off. And this will just be the AI spawn. And then I need to build patrol points as well. So let's go ahead and build a 3D object sphere. And I will set this to a Y value of 1. And I'll build one at this corner. And I'll build one at the opposite corner. And these will be my 2 spawn points. No, patrol points. Probably patrol point A. This one will be patrol point B. And they should be invisible. So sphere collider, mesh renderer off. Let's go ahead and turn all of the mesh renderers on for a moment, just so that I can verify that they're walking to the right spot. So that's house 1. It's done. How are we going to get a reference to this house and the spawn points that it has? Well, probably with code. So I'm going to build a house script, just named house. And it is going to have some public variables for public lists. Let's do transform. Actually, maybe we should make this an array. Maybe I want to build it that way. Yes, okay. And let's have a public transform AI spawn. Just like that. And then void starts. We'll have a few things. So let's have a public AI public game objects AI. Probably needs to be lowercase because it's a variable. Let's also build a public int well, we want a range, right? We want to know within what range. So we have a minimum value and a maximum value. We want to build at least 2 AI and at max 5 AI or 6 or 12 or however many. And when you've got a set of 2 numbers, a minimum and maximum, sometimes you can get fancy. So you could absolutely do public int min and public int max. And if we looked at our house script, we'd see that it would show up as min and max. And you know what? I'll probably just leave it that way for simplicity. The minimum is 2, the maximum is 5. But if I wanted to be clever, what I would do is a public vector2 min max. And I could get to each of these, 2 and 5, by saying minmax.x and minmax.y. And that would be really clever. But I don't have to do that. We don't have to be clever. We'll just have a public int min and a public int max. And we can give them default values of 2 and 5. And we will say random, int total AI equal to a random dot range between min and max. We probably want it to be inclusive, so let's just do max plus 1. So this will give us a number between, well, we want a number between 2 and 5, so 2, 3, 4, 5. But because max is exclusive when we're using integers, we want to say max plus 1. And that'll say between 2 and 6, not including 6. Exclusive. Okay. So, for int I equal to 0, as long as I is less than total AI, I plus plus, and we will just say instantiate AI at the spawn point dot position and the spawn point rotation. So this for loop runs as many times as we need it to. If total AI is 3, it will run 0, 1, 2, a total of 3 times. That doesn't tell the player where the patrol points are. So we need a reference to the AI. So let's have a game objects AI. Let's do clone is equal to instantiate. And then we will say agent lots of programming, I know. We need to get a reference to the patrol script. So we really just need a reference to the patrol script. So let's just say patrol. Agent patrol is equal to clone dot get component patrol, like that. And then let's have a look at our patrol script, shall we? So under scripts, under patrol, let's full screen this and put patrol on one side. So I need to find a way not like that. Need to find a way to get these patrol points here. So there's the house, and there's A, and there's B. And so patrol points has 0 and 1 equal to A and B. I need to get these 2 patrol points from here to here. Notice that I specifically made sure that the variable types were the same. So maybe, just maybe, I will be able to say that agent patrol, which is this guy, agent patrol dot points, because it's public, I can access it, is equal to this patrol points. And then this value will go over and be the same as points for my patrol. Fingers crossed. Fingers crossed. Let's see. Agent patrol dot points equal to patrol points. Yeah. I was thinking of a lot of like more difficult ways to do that. But because they're the same variable type, an int equals an int, a float equals a float, an array of transforms equals an array of transforms, then hopefully this works. Now we have one more thing, which is the player. So let's go ahead and make a public. Screw that. Well, okay, fine. Public transform player. You know what the easier way to do that is? If player is equal to null, player is equal to GameObject.find FPS controller dot transform. This is the other way that I wanted to do it, which is to just go find it. Go find the FPS controller. But sometimes it's not named the FPS controller, maybe it's named player. There's a bunch of different ways to find the player, but we're essentially going to say agent patrol dot player is equal to player. And if this gets confusing because they're the same variable name, we can say this dot player. So we're specifying the patrol points assigned to this particular script. Okay, so we create a clone. We get the patrol script, this one, and we assign the patrol points and we assign the player. That's what should happen. And every house that has spawn house will have a build house or a build rubble. And every time a house is built, void start will run and do this stuff. The rubble won't have this script, and so the rubble won't need to do anything. Shall we look for errors? It's probably a good time to look for errors. Okay, so this is my house. It has an AI spawn point, but it doesn't have a player. Okay, so we need to assign the AI spawn. We need to assign the AI. I'm going to use agent mel and hope that it works. Prefabs, house, agent mel. The min is 2, the max is 5. The patrol points need a size of 2, so I can drag patrol point A and patrol point B. And that's why we have this issue with the player, is because this itself is going to be spawned in. I don't have a way to assign the player. I want to know what happens before I go and try to do the same thing to house number 2. I want to know if house number 1 builds it correctly. Drum roll. Do you guys see what I see? Okay, well, that's kind of dumb. I wanted them to go all the way around the house. But there's a bunch of Agent Mel's walking around, doing their thing. And my question is, does Agent Mel know what the player is? There's the FPS controller assigned to the patrol script because it just found the FPS controller. So if I run over to these guys, will they come chase me? Yo, what's up? How you doing? Oh boy. Yeah, they will. And if I get far enough away, they'll just go back to patrolling. It's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. I'm excited about that. Okay. Okay. Let's do it one more time. Yeah, this time we've got 2 of the regular houses. This time, one house. Okay, I see one guy and then maybe 2 other guys. Yeah, so this built 3. And the other house looks like it built 4. Maybe 5. Yeah, so we know that the randomization works as well. And we saw houses too, but do we see the rubble being built? Yeah, so the rubble doesn't build, and the 2 houses do build. Man, that's cool. Okay, so I'll just go to house number 2, add the house script. It will help me know where to add things. I'll build that 3D object cylinder. Well, no, capsule, right? 3D object capsule. I'll place it here. And that'll be where they all spawn in. And then I will build some spheres at a Y value of 1 and just have them patrol. If I do this in order, they'll go the right direction. Patrol point A. This one gets to be B. C. D. So we'll go to the house. I will lock it for a moment so I can add the patrol points. Let's go back to 0 and add these in. And there's the AI spawn. The player I can't do anything about. The AI I can drag Agent Mel in. And then the min I'm going to change to at least 3 and at max 7. Just for fun. And then we go right back to Unity. We're in Unity. That's silly. Right back to our level. Let's hit play. And I didn't get into the second house. Okay, there's our 2 houses. Looks like this one built 5. That one built 3. And our enemies appear to be patrolling around the house in the same order. That's pretty neat. And they're all, you know, close by so they can talk to each other and hang out. Marching in a decently smooth line. Not perfectly smooth, but decently smooth. It's getting smoother as time goes on. They kind of level out, don't they? So, there you go. A different level each time you play. We could also build in a chance to not spawn anything, but that's kind of what our rubble is for. I'd hate to have 5 houses in a row. Maybe, say I took this one here and I rotated it 90 degrees and I said, let's build a kind of neighborhood, right? So maybe there's another one here and another one here And we duplicate all 3 of these, rotate them 180 degrees, and then just move them kind of here. So there's maybe a road in between. 3D object, cube. Stretch this out, make this a little bit wider, and just set this just above the ground in between. So if we hit play now, I'm hopeful that all the houses will point the right direction and that they won't overlap with themselves. And of course I forgot to add them to the level spawner. So I'll change that size to 0, I'll lock this, and I'll add all the spawn points. And yeah, the spawn points are a little bit too close together. But it builds in houses facing the correct direction. And if there was a chance that some of these were rubble, it would still look like, hey, a house used to be here. So we've got this one that burned down, and you can, infer your own story kind of that way. Pretty cool, right? Pretty cool. Can my AI go through there? Yeah, they can. And if not, they'd have to, I don't know, go around or something. Yeah, it looks like. If we look at our nav mesh, it's all getting cut out the right way. So that brings us to the assignment, which I think we're pretty well ready to do. 75% of the time, place them in Y number of spawn locations. Add the following to your outdoor level. Bipedal AI agents from the first half of the semester. 5 different houses with different patrol points. 3 different rubble prefabs based on the houses that you've already built. And have them become randomly generated as well. Create a 30-second video of your level in the editor, showing off your spawn locations and then hitting play and seeing your houses spawn in. So I would be, if I were recording, once I had all this done, I would turn off the, well, I'd have to leave on the spawn locations, wouldn't I? So that you could see, hey, a house is supposed to go here. And then I would full screen with shift space, like that. And then I would hit play. I would watch all of my houses and rubble spawn in, and I would zoom in here and kind of watch all my AI walk around. Follow all these spawn points. And then maybe if I had time in my video, I would try to full screen my game. But I'm having some trouble with that, so let's maximize on play. I'd probably splice in some gameplay of my actual player looking through and messing with my AI. Hey, what's up? Oh no, don't follow me. Go away and do something else. Make sure you've got this full screened. Make sure you can show off that, I would anyway. I would show off that my rubble is roughly the right size, and I can walk around it. So that my AI follow me. You throw your, shooter script in there and actually shoot at them, that'd be just fantastic. So that's what we're building today. I hope you have a great time, and see you next time.